Now I want to share with you what I know about the Lindsey line. We do know that a John Lindsey fought in the American Revolution. It may be that his father was a Sir John Lindsey, but I've not been able to authenticate that from Virginia. Now, the first John Lindsey, which would have been my great-great-great-grandfather, fought in the Battle of Kings Mountain, where he lost a leg, and later he became a colonel. I think at that time in the Revolution he was a private, but he ultimately became a colonel in the National Guard in the Spartanburg, South Carolina area. For some reason that is not clear to me now, he moved his family to South Alabama, specifically in the in the Monroeville area. They had a home out on the Alabama River about 15 miles west of Monroeville. And then when the trains came through Monroeville, the use of the Alabama River for shipping just dried up, so they moved into Monroeville. And then he is buried out at that lonesome place on the Alabama River where the town is just gone. So it was my great-great-grandfather, John, who has been called by one of my cousins John Hancock Lindsey, but I cannot find that documented. Nonetheless, John moved with his son, my great-grandfather, Caleb Lindsey, down somewhere into Mobile, moved into Monroeville. And from Monroeville, Caleb Lindsey attended the University of Pennsylvania Medical School. Now, how in the world he got there, how he could afford it, I've wondered if he took a slave as a valet. Nothing is known of that. But later we knew that Caleb Lindsey was a devout Republican in the South, mind you, and he railed against secession. I'm fortunate enough to have a copy of his handwritten senior thesis from the University of Pennsylvania titled Epidemic Gastric Fever in Monroe County, Alabama, 1934 to 36. So there was Caleb, who then took his family with his father down to Jasper County, Mississippi, and practiced for a short time there. It's not clear to me, because we have no documents, whether or not he began to feel the discomfort of the Southerners, more Southern than he, I guess you might say, and chose to move to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I've wondered if he made that decision based on his intuition that perhaps the Mississippians on the coast would be a little more tolerant of his radical views. And I say radical only in that he was adamantly opposed to secession. He said that it would destroy the South, and indeed it did. He ultimately practiced in Pass Christian, Mississippi, and died later on out on his place on Wolf River, which is out, Minge Avenue crosses Wolf River. I've tried, without much success, to get more information about Caleb. I know that he spent some time in a Confederate prison camp, but I've not been able to determine which one or indeed why. But he survived the Civil War, and died in Pasquishan, Mississippi. His son one of his sons was Benjamin Franklin Lindsey, my grandfather, who built the homestead on Minge Avenue in Pasquishan that in about 1850, I believe. It may have been after the Civil War, I'm not sure. My father was born at that home in 1885. He was one of 14 children. One died, a 15th child died early after birth. And the pictures of those 14 lined up in front of the old host is just wonderful. You wonder how they did it. You know, here my father was born depending on horses and buggies. His father ran a pecan farm and was station master at the Louisville and Nashville Railroad Station, L&N, in Pasquishan. And here, my father lived to see aircraft, to see automobiles, and then men on the moon. Wow. Will that happen to any of us? I doubt it. But what a span of history. I would love to know more about Dr. Caleb, and I guess that's because he's the only physician that we've identified in the family line. But I keep striving without much luck.